Hi guys and welcome to Crazy Pepper Revenge. This channel is all about crazy true stories, stuff that happens in real life when things get a little bit messy, people dealing with drama, cheating, lies, breakups, and even revenge. Some stories are wild, some are emotional, but all of them will keep you watching. If you like real talk and real situations, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stick around. This is Crazy Pepper Revenge, where the stories get spicy.
She was a cheater. You were a traitor. I'm your punishment.
So I'm Master Sergeant Brett Vasquez, 15 years married to my wife Rita, who was a kindergarten teacher when we met. 4 tours in Middle East later, I come home different, harder, more observant. Started noticing things. Phone always face down. Rita startling when I walked into rooms. Credit card charges I didn't recognize. 3 weeks after returning from my 4th deployment, I found Rita's hidden phone in the garage behind some paint cans. What I discovered made my life liquid freeze. She wasn't just having an affair with Colin Pugh, my former best friend who lost his arm to shrapnel and got medically discharged. This was a calculated conspiracy to destroy my life. The messages revealed their plan: frame me for domestic aggression, steal my military benefits, and disappear with a massive divorce settlement. Rita had already filed preliminary police reports about my concerning behavior and had photos of self-inflicted bruises ready as evidence. But here's the real kicker. Rita had twins 8 months ago, Colin's kids, not mine. Their plan was to claim I was the father, secure $10,000 monthly in child support, then vanish once the divorce was finalized. They were using innocent babies as weapons. Colin had been feeding Rita information about my missions, psychological evaluations, even private conversations with military counselors. Together, they'd been building a case to paint me as an unstable veteran prone to violence. I spent 3 days reading every message, memorizing every detail. My military training kicked in. Patience, precision, strategic warfare. They declared war on me, but they had no idea I'd already won. For 2 weeks, I played the traumatized husband returning from war. I attended couples therapy sessions Rita had arranged, displaying just enough instability to support her narrative while secretly recording everything. Meanwhile, I was building my own network through military intelligence contacts. Here's where it gets interesting. Colin's discharge wasn't heroic like he claimed. He'd been selling military intelligence to foreign contacts and lost his arm trying to destroy evidence during a raid. The military covered it up to avoid scandal, but his discharge papers were coded to mark him as a compromised asset under investigation. Rita was using her elementary school position to gather information about military families, deployment schedules, financial data, emergency contacts. She was part of a larger network targeting vulnerable servicemen for maximum financial damage. The twins were living proof of Colin's deception. According to his medical records, he was supposed to be sterile. Their existence would expose his false medical claims and reopen his entire military file. I started setting traps, feeding Rita false information about my military records, deployment income, and psychological state. She eagerly passed everything to Colin and their attorney, creating a paper trail of their conspiracy. The masterstroke was accidentally leaving documents suggesting I'd received a substantial combat bonus and was suffering severe PTSD. Rita immediately filed for emergency child support, requesting $10,000 monthly, claiming she feared for her safety. Perfect. The day before the hearing, my contact at military intelligence called. Major Rachel Aguilar had completed her investigation into Colin's network. What she found exceeded my suspicions. Colin wasn't just selling information to divorce attorneys. He was part of a broader operation targeting military families for financial fraud and identity theft, sharing intelligence with hostile foreign agents. The twins' birth certificates had been falsified using my stolen military ID. Rita and Colin planned to use the children as anchor points for fraud while selling information about my special operations unit, details that could get my teammates killed. Major Aguilar explained that military jurisdiction applied due to national security implications. Any civilian court proceeding could be suspended if military intelligence determined classified information was at risk. All I needed was the right document at the right moment. I arrived at the courthouse in full dress uniform, every ribbon and medal precisely placed. Rita sat with their attorney, Jesus Rowe, a sleazy divorce specialist known for bleeding military men dry. Colin sat in the gallery with his prosthetic arm displayed for sympathy, and they brought the twins as props. The judge was honorable. Matthew Jameson, a Vietnam veteran with little patience for anyone dishonoring military service. As Rita's attorney painted me as an unfit, dangerous veteran, I sat silently watching their performance. When Judge Jameson asked if I had anything to add, I stood slowly, removed a single document from my briefcase, walked to the bench, and said, "Your Honor, I believe this changes everything." The judge's face went through confusion, surprise, then barely controlled rage as he read. The document was a classified military intelligence brief identifying Colin as a compromised asset under investigation for espionage and Rita as a co-conspirator in a network targeting military families. "Marshal, lock down this courtroom immediately. No one enters or leaves without military authorization," Judge Jameson commanded. The atmosphere changed instantly. Rita's lawyer's hands shook. Rita went pale, looking for exits, and Colin tried to rise but was kept in place by marshals. "I'm suspending these proceedings pending military investigation. Mr. Vasquez, I understand you have additional evidence." I nodded. "Your Honor, the children Mrs. Durham claims are mine were born to Colin Pugh while he was under investigation for selling military secrets. DNA evidence will confirm neither child is biologically mine, and their birth certificates were fraudulently filed using my stolen military identification." Rita's facade crumbled as she realized she'd walked into a trap laid by someone who'd spent years hunting enemies in the most dangerous places on Earth. As military police entered, Judge Jameson's voice was ice cold. "Mrs. Durham, are you represented by counsel in any ongoing federal investigations?" Rita's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The document contained detailed intelligence about their entire network. Colin faced charges for ongoing espionage, identity theft, fraud against military families, and conspiracy to endanger active operations. Rita faced similar charges, plus child endangerment. In chambers, Agent Lena Weston laid out the full scope. Rita and Colin were part of a network that targeted over 200 military families across 14 states, stealing an estimated $12 million in benefits. Intelligence they provided to foreign contacts compromised multiple operations. "How long have you known?" Judge Jameson asked. 3 weeks. Everything since then has been intelligence gathering and trap setting. Every piece of data they used came from me. Income figures, psychological evaluations, bank statements, all carefully constructed fiction to make them overreach. 3 days later at Fort Bragg, I watched federal agents dismantle the network. Colin's operation had run for 3 years, using legitimate businesses as fronts. Rita's school, military support centers, veterans nonprofits. 2 missions were compromised directly due to intelligence Pugh provided. "We lost good soldiers because of his greed," Major Aguilar told me grimly. Rita attempted to negotiate a plea agreement, claiming she was manipulated by Colin, but every message proved she was the mastermind. Colin provided military intelligence. Rita provided execution and targets. She'd weaponized her elementary school position to identify military children and gather family intelligence. 6 months later, I testified for 3 days, systematically destroying Rita's defense. I presented evidence painting her not as Colin's victim, but as the criminal mastermind of a conspiracy devastating military families nationwide. During a recess, I encountered Rita in the courthouse hallway. "Brett," Rita whispered, tears streaming. "Please. We had 15 years together. That has to count for something." I studied her face, searching for any trace of the woman I'd married. I found nothing but desperation. 15 years I spent fighting for our country while you turned our home into a base of operations against military families, I said quietly. "I can explain." "No. You can't explain selling intelligence that got soldiers killed. You can't explain using children as weapons in your fraud. You can't explain betraying every military family who trusted you." I stepped closer. "I could have forgiven your affair, Rita. War changes people. Loneliness makes people desperate. But you didn't just cheat on me. You betrayed our entire community for money. That's unforgivable." Rita's face crumpled. "What about mercy? Second chances?" My smile was cold. "I learned something in Middle East, Rita. Some betrayals are so complete, so calculated, so destructive that mercy becomes complicity. You chose your path when you decided to destroy military families for profit. Now you live with the consequences." The verdicts came down like hammer blows. Rita Durham, guilty on all 47 federal charges, sentenced to life without parole. Colin Pugh, guilty of espionage, conspiracy, fraud, and treason, sentenced to death by military tribunal. Their 17 associates received sentences ranging from 20 years to life. I watched from the gallery as Rita was led away in shackles. At 37 years old, she'd traded 15 years of marriage and a stable future for 3 years of crime that netted her less than $2 million. 2 weeks after Rita's sentencing, I received a call from an old friend in military intelligence. Packages ready for delivery. That evening, I drove to a warehouse outside Fayetteville, where I found Colin secured to a chair with 2 military contractors standing guard. "Hello, Colin," I said, removing my jacket. "I promised you we'd have a conversation about consequences." Over the next 4 hours, I methodically extracted payment for every betrayal, every lie, every dead soldier Colin's greed had created. Colin Pugh was found dead in his cell 3 days later, an apparent self-destruction. Only I and 2 contractors knew that Colin had died because some betrayals demand blood payment. Rita met a similar fate 6 months into her sentence. Federal prison hadn't been kind to a woman who betrayed military families. Word had spread that she'd sold intelligence that killed soldiers. Prison justice operates by different rules, and Rita learned those rules the hard way. 1 year after the courthouse confrontation, I stood in my rebuilt office looking at commendations from military families whose stolen benefits had been recovered. Letters from soldiers whose lives had been saved when the intelligence leaks stopped. And a certificate acknowledging my role in exposing the largest military fraud conspiracy in American history. The twins, Colin's children, had been adopted by a military family in Texas. I'd ensured they would never know the truth about their biological parents. Children shouldn't pay for their parents' sins. Major Aguilar called with a new mission. "Brett, we've got another network operating out of Camp Pendleton targeting Marine families. We need someone with your particular skill set." "What's the timeline?" 2 weeks, off books, civilian contractor status. You'll have full authority to investigate and document their activities." "What about termination authority?" Her pause spoke volumes. "Whatever the situation requires, Brett. Some betrayals can't be solved through conventional justice." I hung up and began packing my gear. I'd found my new calling, hunting those who preyed on military families, who turned service and sacrifice into opportunities for profit and betrayal. As I loaded my truck, I reflected on the lessons of the past year. Rita and Colin had taught me that mercy was weakness when dealing with calculated evil, that some people were so corrupt that rehabilitation was impossible. Most importantly, they'd proven that sometimes justice required going beyond what the law could provide. I'd returned from my 4th tour a different man. I discovered that the real war wasn't in Middle East. It was here, at home, against those who betrayed the very values soldiers died to protect. It was a war I intended to win, one betrayer at a time. Some men are broken by betrayal. Others are forged into something harder, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous. I chose to become the latter.